Well met, lords and ladies, Jacob Butter speaking, and a warm welcome to this week's Walking Wednesday. I thought when I was filming late at night I'd be fine, but I picked the one street where there's a jackhammer that is still going on. So you can just hear that in the background. Even though, again, it's been a very tranquil day because we've been on the road for most of today. That's why I'm filming this late in general. And the reason why we're filming this late is because we just got back from a funeral. This funeral, I forgot it was happening today, and so that's why I haven't mentioned much of what was going on. Essentially, while I was yesterday, when I went downstairs. After working on some stuff for a job location that I'm still going through, trying to finish. It requires a lot more of written statements than I originally anticipated, so it's going a bit more slow than usual. Got to collect some documents and whatever. Not important, but basically I was like, okay, well, I can do that and then I can finish up, maybe finally actually release a song in January if I actually get some of the old Zane footage that I had, or I've been practicing with the music, with the pad that I have, the MIDI pad. But yeah, all of that was to say that kind of went out the window the second I was downstairs, and my mum said to me, "Okay, so we're going to your aunt's house tomorrow. Then we'll be here at this time. We'll do this time." I was like, okay. I've clearly forgotten something is happening. I then asked, and it turned out that it was a funeral that I'd known about was happening for some time, but I forgot it was precisely today. So a lot of that went out the window because that's more important. But yeah, that's why, as far as management goes, I didn't do it early in the morning because I was working on the application, and they'd be tired anyway, so there is that. But yeah, I'm here now. We basically just got back and I immediately changed shoes, grabbed my coat and left. I'm still wearing the suit actually right now. You can't really see it that well, but yeah. This tie is actually my dad's, because when I went to look for the tie that would go with this suit, which I also wore to my nan's funeral not so long ago, I couldn't find it. I couldn't find the tie. Then it turns out when we were at the crematorium, we got out of the car, I felt something in the one of the pockets of the jacket, and the tie was there the whole time. I don't tend to keep ties in the pockets. I tend to have them like draped on the hanger as well, so I was not used to that process. But yeah, that was errors were made there. But yeah, either way, the person in question, I think she'd be fine with me naming her, because she was one of those people who really like to tell stories a lot, and people were telling, and she became the subject of everyone's stories this time. But yeah, so her name was Doreen. And she was the, I guess I could say best friend of my nan. Yeah, she passed away not so long after my nan's funeral, actually. Quite surprisingly, because in the group of friends that she had, she was one of the relatively younger ones. I say relatively. They're all like their 80s and 90s now. But yeah, there's like a picture that my nan had framed in the room with her and Doreen and a bunch of other people as well. And that was one of the pictures that made it into the visual presentation that there was. But yeah, I remember Doreen quite well because I wouldn't see her like all the time, but it used to be a tradition for a group to meet up every Tuesday. Apparently at first it was to play it wasn't badminton. It was some sports. I couldn't remember this part. But then afterwards, as they got older, they just met up and at the pub together instead. A pub they one time almost got kicked out of for bringing their own birthday cake, even though the pub in question at the time did not do birthday cakes for someone's party, and they'd been warned previously apparently. I'm just imagining the headlines in that paper. But yeah, fortunately they weren't put on pub watch or anything for that. They did actually leave when they were requested to do so. Well, I guess when they were given the ultimatum of, either have the cake but go somewhere else, or ditch the cake. Don't really know. But yeah, but needless to say, it was a fascinating bunch, and when my nan was no longer able to go to attend those places because she was bedridden, Doreen would come around and give her updates about everything. I mean, Doreen loved to, like I said before, talk and tell stories, and it's one of the people who can't get to keep quiet, essentially. If she did Walking Wednesdays, they would be hours long rather than the mere 20 to 30 minutes that I limit them to. So you can imagine, for those of you who are bored with this content already. But yeah, and so that was one of the highlights of my nan's week. I mean, of course, the rotation for my nan usually involves the carers that would arrive for her, versus and during late Friday to early Wednesday, my aunt would be with her, and then to give her a break for a few days, my mum and I would go. That's why I was in Crawley for every Wednesday that I was present for, and that obviously she was alive for too. So we were there to, give my aunt a break, look after her, everything. But yeah, also, like, all of that, it was still routine, but it was a change in just the monotony of being in one room all the time. And let me tell you, I know what it's like to, spend a lot of time inside one room. I mean, that's one of the reasons they call my room the Hobbit hole. But I do leave. I have the option to do so. So yeah, was one of the reasons I obviously took up going every single week. Not that I would not want to visit my nan anyway. The point is, yeah, on Tuesday, it's one of those things where, it's not like I always had too much to say to my nan at the time, as in, like, stuff that she would understand. I mean, I could very much talk about the things that were in the week, and sometimes she would watch Walking Wednesday, for example. But yeah, it wasn't like I was like a myriad of things to, just throw at her all at once and then let her process for a while. And Doreen did. So yeah. And she would visit before a lot anyway. I remember her visits from when I was younger. So yeah, that was it was definitely a shock, like, especially so soon after cremating my nan and everything. And that was another one in the group before my nan and Doreen that also passed away that same year. So yeah, it was but yeah, like I was very surprised. I mean, I said that I was surprised to have been invited, but essentially over here what I've learned is that with funerals you can just go to them, essentially. It's not really a case of, like, I know that in the US they do like funeral invites and such, but yeah, I guess we never did that here. Then again, this funeral was a lot more traditional than my nan's was, because, and I mentioned this before, like how my mum was the somewhat officiator, I guess you could say, and how My aunt did a poem, and my two uncles had speeches, and I had a speech as well. So it was very much a family organized thing in the same venue. But yeah, it's kind of reminded me, this funeral today, of how unusual that actually was. Because of course, like, you know, Doreen had a priest do the officiating and hymns and such. So yeah, it seems like a lot of the family that we talked to were also stressed about other things at the time. I mean, of course, if my nan had anything to say about it, she probably would have said like, oh, you know, don't make him go up there, don't make him do a speech, referring to me. As to her own children, that's debatable. But yeah, it was interesting because, like, again, we sang a few hymns that caught me off guard because I didn't have a program, so I fished around for one, trying to follow along. And yeah, we even sang the Jerusalem theme, which, if I understand correctly, is the same one that that Seamus Gorman once sang as part of a PlusNet advert, but was not shown on screen. Which is why I knew the rhythm of it, because otherwise I would have been toast. Beauty of our hymns, of course, is that most of the verses sound exactly the same as the other ones, so once you get the meter down your head, you're at least able to follow along at least somewhat. Yeah. And then afterwards was the wake. Like, one of the things we were expecting to happen was that people would not question why we were there, but more inquire. Because, I mean, it's like Doreen had a huge social life, not just the Tuesday group, but like other clubs and such. And of course, you know, her family was there too. And but yeah, I didn't actually recognize anyone that was there. Some of them recognized me because they'd heard stories about me from my nan or from Doreen herself, or maybe they'd just seen pictures of when I was younger, so the big surprise for them was how tall I am now and such, you know, that kind of situation. Which, yeah, has happened to me for most of my life. But yeah, but yeah, so I mean, a lot of people it seemed that didn't know each other there. There were these two guys that apparently did a lot of work around Doreen's house and such. You know, they were asking everyone, oh, so how do you know Doreen then? Just striking up, you know, conversation. And they were at our table at the pub we went to. Not the one that was got kicked out of, that was a very different one. I myself got kicked out of that pub that one time. Because, only because I was underage at the time. Like, they couldn't allow any children there, so my brother and I had to leave, even though we were just like out and about. I think with our nan as well at the time. We got one picture left. I guess Picture Lady would have been there at the time, maybe. I'm not really sure. Diane was trying to make sure that she remembered the people's names that she had met before, and to her credit, she did way better than I would have done, because, you know, I heard a bunch of names going around like Martha, Margaret, etc. And it took me a while. It's like, oh wait, oh that's Margaret. I'd never seen you before, for example. Yeah. I mean, so yeah, it's what to do with these wakes, is that, you know, how all the funerals themselves, just, it's a testament to, you know, the people that a person has touched in their life. I mean, the same way that weddings are, obviously, although weddings, of course, come with usually far more drama or pressure, and tend to be a lot more extravagant. With funerals, I guess what I've seen is that they tend to say a lot about the person, even if they have to follow a very strict procedure, because there's several families and groups that come in like in one at one time. So we had to keep our ceremony under 15 minutes. That's why we had to rehearse and such for my nan's one. And we were fortunate enough that there was not another family after us. We were the last in the day. So we got a little bit more leeway, but still, we still finished on time. And yeah, but it's more so that, you know, the people that show up or what happens afterwards. Like after my nan's one, we went back to her house, the one that, you know, she was so happy and proud in, even if she couldn't leave it for the last 3 years of her life. And with Doreen, of course, you know, who's one for going out all the time, we went out. That's how these things go. But again, the people that showed up there, the ones that clearly knew her from all these different places and were all kind of meeting each other for the first time. Not all of them, but, you know, you could tell that some people were just making acquaintances like right now, that they had one person in common, kind of like us in a sense. And this was me, my mum, my aunts that I knew and arrived with, and we ended up taking a lady back to her house. That's just how these things go sometimes. But yeah, it's quite something. And of course, the ultimate we kind of reflect on the fact that a lot of people who are there to who will be there to like mourn a person, you know, turns out that a lot of them might not even exist yet, for example. I mean, you never know how these things would go. But again, like, that's why when you have like a person who's lived such a long life, that they have all these people, and that's something quite special. So again, I'm glad that I went to that, despite the fact that I still have to finish up some text-based stuff for that application, and I'm very tired, and hopefully I will be not doing that while I'm delirious or something. I still know it was the right call to attend there. You know, some things are just that important that you go to them. You know, even if you know that person you might not have been as close to, but you know, it still meant something to you, essentially. So yeah. Last thing I'll remark on probably is that somebody actually mentioned that how unusual my nan's funeral was, and I didn't even realise at the time, because last funeral I went to before that was my granddad's, which was a full 11 years earlier, and that was and that one was much grander as well, because he was a war veteran, so there was a lot more procedure to that one particularly. But yeah, I mean, oh wait, no, sorry, my other granddad was before that, so I was in between those two. And again, I think that one was sort of in the middle. But yeah, my nan wasn't particularly religious or anything, so what we did for her made a lot of sense. So like I said before, it really just depends on the person, and it seems like a lot of funerals when they're, but again, comparing them to weddings, you know, once if you keep them simple enough, then that's all that counts. You know, it's not necessarily, you know, like a great spectacle or anything. It's just what they are. So again, you know, a lot to reflect on alongside the person's actual life. Again, I learnt a lot about Doreen today. Again, having only seen her occasionally on a few days that we would coincide, or just along the years. And that's also fascinating. It's what things that you think, oh, you know, I wish I'd known that. I wish I talked about this beforehand, or you know, something like seeing a picture. You know, like one of Dorian as a child. You know, striking a pose in some sort of fancy dress or something like that. And just like, oh wow, you did exactly something we all did, and then you kept that smile throughout the rest of your pictures. And yeah, another thing was that turns out that her sister actually, when she saw me for the first time, said that she was about to remark that Dorian always knew lots of good-looking men. That I referenced a picture of her in the Paradise Islands with some young guy. I don't know, taking a photo with no context. I again, you get a lot of these snippets and you think, what was that about? You know, tell me more. But of course you can't really. But yeah, there are people who actually were close to that. You know, they had a lot of stuff to say, or you know, they were just there reminding themselves of other times or anything. And that's like the kind of simplistic beauty that, you know, you can strive for. I don't know. All right, time to get back, clear my mind, and apply for that job. So yeah, please leave a like or dislike because your opinion matters. Shout outs already, and on that note, until next time, farewell.